Stop whatever you're doing and pay attention. Not later, not casually, right now. Because what I'm about to reveal isn't advice, it's exposure. The exposure of the one flaw that has allowed people to disrespect you your entire life, and the one identity shift that makes that disrespect impossible. And understand this clearly. This message is not for the comfortable. It's not for the emotionally fragile. It's not for the man who still wants everyone to like him. This is for the man who is done being overlooked, done being dismissed, done being spoken to with tones that should never be used on him. This is for the man who is ready to step into the version of himself he's been suppressing for years, because there is a cold identity that Machiavelli understood long before modern psychology, an internal posture, so controlled, so unreadable, so sovereign, that once you embody it, people stop trying you. They stop raising their voice. They stop testing your patience. They stop pushing your limits. They stop assuming you're the kind of man they can cross without consequence. Your presence begins doing the work your words never could. But before you can understand this identity, you must accept a brutal truth most men avoid. Right now, someone is disrespecting you. Not loudly, not openly, but psychologically. A co-worker who talks to you with a tone they would never use with someone they fear. A friend who cancels on you because your time doesn't feel expensive. A partner who pushes your emotional limits because you haven't enforced consequences. A family member who questions you because they've never seen you stand firm. These are not random moments. These are tests, probes, small strikes, designed to understand what kind of man you really are. And here's the truth. Most men fail these tests instantly, not because they aren't strong, but because they aren't structured. They react emotionally, they over-explain, they defend themselves, they try to be understanding, they try to keep the peace. And every one of these reactions broadcasts the same silent message: I can be disrespected without consequence. People don't need you to say it, they can feel it. This is why Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge more by the eye than by the hand," meaning, people don't respect your intentions. They respect your presentation, your presence, your posture, your reactions, your silence. And here's the truth you were never taught. Disrespect does not come from bad people. It comes from misread identities. People disrespect you because the identity you show them is one they don't have to fear losing. That ends now. Because what you're about to build is the cold identity that eliminates disrespect from your life, not through aggression, not through confrontation, but through inaccessibility. Not emotional inaccessibility, but psychological inaccessibility. You're about to become the kind of man whose inner world cannot be touched, whose reactions cannot be predicted, whose boundaries cannot be bent, whose self-respect is not negotiable. This is where your transformation begins, and it starts with the first Machiavellian law you must master. Rule 1. The law of cold self-containment. Most men don't get disrespected because they're weak. They get disrespected because they're open. Open with their emotions, open with their reactions, open with their intentions, open with their insecurities, open with their approval seeking. They make themselves psychologically readable, which makes them psychologically controllable. But the man who carries himself with cold self-containment, the man whose internal world is sealed off, becomes someone people instinctively respect. Let me break this down. There are 3 types of men in this world. 1. The exposed man, weak. Everything he feels, he shows. His frustration is visible. His irritation is audible. His insecurity leaks from his posture. His fear appears in his eyes. You insult him, he flinches. You pressure him, he stumbles. You challenge him, he gets emotional. People disrespect these men easily because their inner world is an open window. You can read their feelings before they speak. You can predict their reactions before you act. You can control them without effort. They are psychologically transparent, and transparency is the death of respect. 2. The masked man. Average. He tries to look unbothered. He tries to hide emotion, but his calmness is forced. His silence is strained. His stillness is tension disguised as strength. You push him hard enough, and his mask cracks. You pressure him enough, and his emotions spill out. People respect him more than the exposed man, but only until they discover the mask is thin, the cold man. Untouchable. This is the identity you're about to build. The cold man does not suppress his emotions, he contains them. His reactions are deliberate. His silence is intentional. His tone is controlled. His body gives away nothing. His mind remains his own. People cannot read him, cannot predict him, cannot manipulate him, cannot provoke him. They sense something dangerous beneath his stillness, not rage, not volatility, but sovereignty. This is the man people respect immediately, not because he demands respect, but because his presence removes all doubt that disrespect has consequences. This is what Machiavelli meant when he wrote, "A prince must learn to be other than what he appears." The cold identity is not about acting emotionless. It's about building an inner world that no one else can enter. Let me show you how this looks in real life. Someone uses a disrespectful tone. The exposed man reacts. The masked man forces a smile. The cold man doesn't move. No visible reaction. No change in tone. No flash of emotion. Just a stillness that forces the other person to feel their own disrespect. This unnerves people deeply, because when someone disrespects you, they expect emotional feedback, anger, defensiveness, shock. When you give them nothing, they feel the weight of their own behavior, and that silence is more powerful than any comeback. Someone tries to provoke you. The exposed man argues. The masked man laughs awkwardly. The cold man observes. He lets the other person's instability reveal itself. He doesn't respond to disrespect. He studies it. The man who observes instead of reacted becomes the one who silently takes control. Someone pushes your boundaries. The exposed man explains. The masked man compromises. The cold man withdraws access. Not with drama, not with warnings, not with speeches. He simply becomes less available, less present, less reachable. People feel the shift immediately, and they adjust accordingly, because the cold man does not punish others emotionally. He punishes them with distance, and distance is the most feared consequence in human psychology. Why this cold identity ends disrespect? Because disrespect can only survive where there is emotional reaction. If you are easily irritated, people will push you. If you are easily guilted, people will manipulate you. If you are easily angered, people will provoke you. If you are easily intimidated, people will dominate you. But if you are unmoved, if you are internally quiet, if your reactions are impossible to read, people stop trying. Your cold identity becomes a psychological shield. You cannot be emotionally hijacked. You cannot be baited into reaction. You cannot be guilted into compliance. You cannot be pressured into impulsive decisions. You cannot be disrespected without consequence. People start to feel something around you they don't feel around other men. Uncertainty. And uncertainty breeds caution. Caution breeds respect. Respect breeds better treatment. Better treatment builds power. The first step to building the cold identity: stop giving people emotional access to you. Emotion is the strongest currency in human relationships, and you've been spending it on everyone. From this moment on, you must treat your emotions as private property, not a public spectacle. When you feel irritation rising, breathe instead of reacting. When you feel disrespected, observe instead of arguing. When someone tests you, respond slowly or don't respond at all. Cold self-containment begins with this simple shift. Move from emotional impulse to strategic delay. Every second of delay strengthens your identity. Every moment of stillness increases your presence. People cannot disrespect the man. They cannot read. Now that you understand the law of cold self-containment, you must learn the second and far more dangerous Machiavellian principle, the one that reveals why disrespect lingers in your life, and how to eliminate it so completely that people adjust their behavior the moment you enter the room. Because here's something most men never realize. Disrespect is not about how people feel about you. Disrespect is about what people think they can get away with, and people believe they can get away with disrespecting you because they have access not to your time, not to your resources, but to something much more valuable: your inner world, your emotions, your insecurities, your triggers, your need for approval, your fear of conflict, your desire to be liked, your reluctance to walk away. People don't disrespect you because they're bold. They disrespect you because you've shown them the map to your psychological weak points. That's why the next rule is non-negotiable. It is one of Machiavelli's darkest insights, and when you master it, disrespect disappears from your life so fast. It feels like the world changed overnight. But it wasn't the world that changed. It was your identity. Rule 2, the law of controlled disclosure. In simple terms, only reveal what strengthens your position. Never reveal what weakens it. Every time you open your mouth, every time you vent, every time you explain yourself too much, every time you share too quickly, every time you emotionally overshare with the wrong person, you are arming them with information farm and diwound sounds. When dachem your forpo, you are got tash that can eventually be used against you. Humans are data collectors, even the ones who care about you. They observe your tone. They notice what makes you insecure. They track what makes you jealous. They memorize what triggers your reactions. They remember your vulnerabilities, your fears, your desires, your wounds, and they store it, consciously or unconsciously. Not everyone uses it maliciously, but everyone uses it. That's why Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few know what you really are." He didn't write this as a philosophical observation. He wrote it as a strategy, because the moment people truly know you, they can control you, and a controlled man cannot command respect. Let me show you how this plays out in real life. Scenario 1. You reveal your insecurity. Insecurity, puncority. You tell a friend, "I hate when people ignore my messages." He nods, laughs, and says, "Bro, same." But inside his mind, he quietly records, "This affects him. This can be used to unsettle him. This is leverage." Later, when he wants to assert dominance, create distance, or test your value, what does he do? He ignores your messages, not because he's busy, but because he knows it bothers you. Your own disclosure became his tool. Scenario 2. You reveal your financial stress. You tell a co-worker, "Man, things are tight for me right now." He sympathizes, but what he actually learns is you're vulnerable to pressure. You might accept too much work. You might not negotiate your value. You might fold to avoid conflict. Later, when a project comes that no one wants to do, guess who they push it onto? You. Not because you're the best person for it, but because you revealed a pressure point, and pressure points reduce respect. Scenario 3. You reveal your loneliness. You tell someone, "I just hate being alone." To you, it's honesty. To them, it's information. They now know you won't leave. You'll tolerate more. You'll chase harder. You'll break your own boundaries. You'll accept disrespect out of fear of losing connection. Revealing loneliness is one of the quickest ways to become someone people manipulate. Scenario 4. You reveal your desires too early. You tell a new partner, "I really want a serious future." Do you know what they hear? "I will overlook red flags. I will tolerate disrespect. I will try too hard. I will invest faster than you will." Your desire becomes their leverage, not because they're evil, but because humans naturally leverage what they know. This is why Machiavelli warned constantly against revealing intentions too quickly, because intentions reveal weakness, and weakness, no matter how small, creates psychological permission for people to treat you carelessly. You must understand this truth. People don't treat you based on who you are. They treat you based on the information you give them. This is why controlled disclosure is the backbone of respect. The less people know about your inner world, the less power they have over you. When people can't predict you, they can't control you. When they can't control you, they start respecting you. And when they start respecting you, disrespect disappears. The 3 levels of controlled disclosure. Let me break down exactly how to practice this. Level 1. Emotional selectivity. Not everyone gets emotional access to you. A powerful man does not reveal what irritates him, what scares him, what embarrasses him, what he desires deeply, what rejection he fears, what he's ashamed of, what he's secretly struggling with. These things must remain behind the walls of your inner world. People can only damage the parts of you they can reach. If they can't reach your emotions, they can't disrespect you. Level 2. Silence during pressure. When someone disrespects you, your first instinct is to react. That instinct is your weakness. The cold identity responds with silence, stillness, observation. Because silence creates psychological confusion. People don't fear anger. People fear uncertainty. When someone pushes your boundary and you respond calmly, slowly, or not at all, they feel a sudden shift inside themselves. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know what you might do. They don't know how you interpret their words. They don't know whether they crossed a line. And that not knowing is where respect begins. Level 3. Selective transparency. You can reveal things, but only things that benefit you. Share only what builds your image, strengthens your authority, creates clarity, reinforces your standards, communicates stability, or signals direction, establishes boundaries. You don't share your wounds. You share your standards. You don't share your insecurities. You share your expectations. You don't share your fears. You share your decisions. This is the difference between the respected and the disrespected. The disrespected man reveals details that weaken him. The respected man reveals only what elevates him. Why controlled disclosure makes you feel colder? Because silence feels cold to people who rely on emotional access. Your lack of vulnerability feels like distance to those who want control. Your lack of immediate response feels like threat to those who expect weakness. Your lack of emotional openness feels like power to everyone else. People interpret your restraint as coldness. But coldness is what makes disrespect impossible. The man who speaks too much is easy to manipulate. The man who reveals too much is easy to disrespect. The man who shares too much is easy to weaken. But the man whose inner world is sealed, whose thoughts are private, whose emotions are contained, whose intentions are hidden, that man is feared and respected and never handled carelessly. Because people can't disrespect what they can't access. Machiavelli's warning. Machiavelli wrote, "Never reveal the extent of your intentions." Modern translation, never give people the information they need to hurt you. People cannot wound what they do not understand. They cannot manipulate what they cannot predict. They cannot disrespect what they cannot reach. Controlled disclosure creates one thing: mystery. And mystery is power. Mystery forces people to assume. Assumptions force caution. Caution becomes respect. How to practice controlled disclosure. Starting today, from this moment on, speak less than you think, reveal less than you feel, respond slower than you want, share selectively, not emotionally, withhold anything that weakens your position, let others talk while you assess. Keep your emotional world off limits. Every time you apply this rule, you become colder, not in heart, but in exposure. And the colder you become, the harder it becomes for anyone to treat you casually. Controlled disclosure is the psychological armor that most men never develop, but once you build it, you stop being someone people feel comfortable disrespecting. You become someone they handle carefully, because the man they cannot read is the man they cannot risk offending. You now understand two of the most critical pillars of the cold identity: cold self-containment and avanti-hafkenpa, controlled disclosure. But there is a deeper layer, a darker, more psychological shift that transforms not just how you respond to disrespect, but whether people attempt it in the first place. Because disrespect doesn't begin at the moment someone insults you. Disrespect begins in the mind of the person who thinks they can insult you. To truly become immune to disrespect, you must dismantle that belief before it ever forms. This is where the next Machiavellian law becomes essential. It is a principle only powerful men understand, and it's the one the weak will never accept, because it demands something they fear: unpredictability. Predictability is the fuel of all manipulation. If someone can predict your reactions, your emotions, your needs, your boundaries, your patterns, they can position themselves above you. They can push you. They can guilt you. They can provoke you. They can control you. They can disrespect you with precision. Predictable men are not respected. They are used. That's why the third rule is this. Rule 3. The law of behavioral unpredictability. This rule alone elevates your presence instantly. In simple terms, never let people know exactly who they're dealing with when the situation becomes tense. Not because you're chaotic, not because you're unstable, but because the man who cannot be predicted, cannot be manipulated, and the man who cannot be manipulated, cannot be disrespected. Let me explain the psychology behind this. Humans assess each other through patterns. They watch your tone, your reactions, your posture, your boundaries, your level of self-respect. From this data, they create a mental script. If I do this, he will respond like that. Once someone has your script, you are no longer a man, you are a formula, and formulas are easy to exploit. This is why disrespect sticks to predictable men, because people already know their response. He'll explain himself, he'll apologize, he'll get emotional, he'll get nervous, he'll tolerate it, he'll back down, he'll try to smooth things over, he'll laugh it off. Predictability invites disrespect, unpredictability destroys it. Let me show you how. Scenario 1. Someone raises their voice. A predictable man tries to calm the situation. He speaks softly. He tries to diffuse tension. And in that instant, he announces his weakness. I fear conflict. A disrespectful person feels this immediately. But the cold man, he does something unexpected. He says nothing. He doesn't flinch. His face doesn't change. He simply looks at the person with the kind of stillness that makes them hear their own voice echo back at them. Suddenly they feel exposed. Suddenly they feel foolish. Suddenly they realize they've made a mistake, because the cold man is unreadable, and unreadable men unsettle the world. Scenario 2. Someone pushes a boundary. A predictable man explains. He says things like, "I didn't like that. It bothered me when you, please don't do that again." These are requests disguised as boundaries, and requests never create respect. But the cold man, he withdraws access. He changes his availability. He shifts the nature of the relationship without announcing anything. No emotional reaction, no debate, no speech, just consequence. People fear consequences they cannot predict. Scenario 3. Someone tries to manipulate you. A predictable man defends himself. He gets emotional. He tries to prove his innocence. He tries to justify his actions. And manipulators love this. It gives them data. But the cold man, he doesn't defend. He doesn't explain. He doesn't justify. He simply says, "Do what you want." This response destroys manipulators instantly, because manipulation only works when you fear losing something. And the man who stops defending himself is the man who cannot be controlled. Scenario 4. Someone displays disrespect. A predictable man reacts. A predictable man takes it personally. A predictable man engages emotionally. But the cold man, he does something they do not expect. He remains calm. He remains unshaken. He lets the disrespect hang in the air until the other person feels its weight. You must understand something. Most people disrespect others to get a reaction. When you don't react, their ego fractures. They expected to see weakness. Instead, they see composure. And composure is terrifying to those who operate through emotional chaos. Why unpredictability works? Because unpredictability triggers one thing in the human mind: danger, not physical danger, psychological danger. People instinctively fear the individual, whose next move they cannot anticipate. They fear offending him. They fear challenging him. They fear losing him. They fear waking the version of him they've never seen. Unpredictability is not acting wild. It's acting unreadable. It's not about being unstable. It's about being strategic. Let me break it down. Unpredictability creates psychological elevation. When people can't predict your reactions, they subconsciously elevate your status. Why? Because unpredictability signals emotional discipline, internal power, strategic thinking, self-governance, lack of fear, independent, dominance of self. Only powerful men move like this. Unpredictability forces respect. People respect those they can't control, and people can't control what they can't predict. This is why behavioral unpredictability is one of the most feared psychological weapons. Even Machiavelli hinted at this principle when he said, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Fear, in this context, means uncertainty. The uncertainty of how you might respond. The uncertainty of your limits. The uncertainty of your consequences. The uncertainty of whether crossing you is worth the risk. The 3 forms of unpredictability you must master to build the cold identity. You must become unpredictable in 3 precise ways. Emotional unpredictability. Never let people know which emotion lives closest to the surface. Most men have a default: anger, irritation, sadness, anxiety. Fear. People learn which button to press. When you stop reacting emotionally, people stop attempting emotional attacks. Response unpredictability. If you always respond the same way, you are predictable. Sometimes you answer immediately. Sometimes you take hours. Sometimes you ignore. Sometimes you redirect, not out of games, but out of sovereignty. Your response is your choice, not their entitlement. 3. Consequence, unpredictability. This is where your power sharpens. Sometimes you forgive quickly. Sometimes you withdraw permanently. Sometimes you let it go. Sometimes you cut someone out without warning. People fear consequence. They cannot calculate. This alone ends disrespect. The result of mastering unpredictability is people begin treating you differently. They weigh their words carefully. They watch their tone instinctively. They avoid pushing your limits. They hesitate before crossing you. They think twice before disrespecting you. Not because you threatened them, not because you demanded respect, not because you asserted dominance, but because your identity became a question they cannot answer. And human beings fear the unknown. The cold identity is built on that fear. The transformation beginning inside you. You are becoming the man who listens more than he speaks, reveals nothing, he doesn't choose, reacts only when it benefits him, enforces consequences without announcement, is not moved by disrespect, is not controlled by approval, is not emotionally readable, is not psychologically accessible, is not afraid of silence, is not afraid of loss, is not afraid of being misunderstood, is not the man who cannot be predicted, cannot be disrespected. And you are building that man right now. The cold identity that makes you immune to disrespect. Machiavelli. Everything you've learned so far builds toward one final transformation, a shift that separates a man who handles disrespect from a man who never attracts it again. Because immunity isn't about reacting powerfully. Immunity is about becoming someone who no longer provokes the thought of disrespect in the minds of others. People don't cross powerful men. People don't test powerful men. People don't disrespect powerful men, not because those men fight harder, but because their identity radiates something the world instinctively fears: uncertainty, distance, standards, consequences, self-governance. This final transformation is where all the laws merge into one and create the psychological presence that every great strategist carried. Because the cold identity is not about emotion, it is not about aggression, it is not about dominance, it is about sovereignty. And sovereignty begins with the fourth Machiavellian rule. Rule 4, the law of non-negotiable boundaries. Listen carefully. A boundary that must be explained is not a boundary. A boundary that must be defended is not a boundary. A boundary that must be repeated is not a boundary. A boundary is only a boundary, when people feel the consequence. Most men fail here. They talk, they warn, they argue, they negotiate. They beg others to respect them. But respect does not come from requests. It comes from repercussions. A boundary is not "don't talk to me like that." A boundary is becoming unavailable the moment it happens. A boundary is not "I need you to respect my time." A boundary is ending access to you when they disrespect your time. A boundary is not "I don't tolerate that behavior." A boundary is disappearing when that behavior appears. This is what Machiavelli meant when he wrote, "Men will always disrespect you when there is no consequence. Humans do not learn from your words, they learn from your absence, your silence, your withdrawal, your removal of benefits, your refusal to bend." When your boundaries become action instead of speeches, people finally begin adjusting themselves around you, not because they like you, but because they fear losing access to you. And access is the new currency of power. Let me give you a truth most men never hear. The moment you start enforcing consequences, people who truly value you will rise and people who only used you will disappear. Both outcomes are wins. This is how the cold identity begins to crystallize. Rule 5, the law of selective generosity. Most men believe respect is earned by being endlessly giving, endlessly available, endlessly supportive, endlessly understanding. But generosity without discernment is not kindness. It is self-destruction. Machiavelli warned rulers to give sparingly, so their gifts carried weight. Modern translation: when your presence is rare, it becomes valuable. When your generosity is selective, it becomes meaningful. When your attention is earned, it becomes respected. People do not value what is abundant. They value what is scarce. Most men exhaust themselves trying to earn respect through service. But service without boundaries breeds contempt, not admiration. Selective generosity reverses this. You give to those who prove loyalty. You support those who support you. You invest in those who invest in you. You offer warmth to those who have earned the right to feel it. Your kindness becomes power because it becomes a reward, not a replacement for your dignity. And when your goodness is reserved, people treat you like someone they don't want to lose. This is how respect becomes instinctive. But even selective generosity is not the final form of the cold identity. There is still one law left, the law that turns you into a man who cannot be disrespected, because he cannot be controlled. Rule 6. The law of emotional distance. Emotional distance is not coldness. It is not detachment from life. It is not numbness. Emotional distance is clarity. It is your ability to remain center, while others dissolve into chaos. It is your ability to hold your identity, while others weaponize emotions. It is your ability to stay still, while others try to shake you. And Machiavelli warned, a wise man should always act in cool blood, meaning stay calm when others are burning, stay measured when others are spiraling, stay neutral when others are emotional, stay deliberate when others are impulsive. Why? Because emotional distance breaks manipulation at its root. Here is the truth. Nobody disrespects the man whose emotions they cannot reach. If guilt doesn't move you, manipulators panic. If anger doesn't control you, provokers lose power. If approval doesn't tempt you, people stop performing. If shame doesn't shape you, society loses its grip. If fear doesn't paralyze you, oppressors retreat. The man who controls his emotional world controls every situation he walks into, not because he dominates others, but because he refuses to be dominated. Let me show you how emotional distance is built. 1. Delay every emotional reaction. Silence is your shield. Pausing is your power. The first reaction is emotional. The second reaction is strategic. Live in the second. 2. Think in third person. When tension rises, imagine watching yourself from outside your body. This instantly lowers emotional noise and raises psychological clarity. 3. Withdraw when needed. Distance heals your mind. Closeness clouds it. Step back. Recenter. Return with clarity. Stop tying your identity to relationship. You are whole, with or without anyone. This terrifies manipulators. 5. Don't personalize tone, behavior, or attitude. Most disrespect is projection, not truth. Let people carry their own darkness. You are not their container. With emotional distance, you become someone others cannot influence at will. This is when the cold identity becomes unshakable. The final transformation, becoming untouchable. You've now learned all the laws. You've understood the psychological architecture. You've seen how the cold identity forms, unreadable emotions, unpredictable reaction, boundaries with consequence, selective generosity, emotional distance, controlled presence, strategic silence, self-governance, refusal to chase, identity built from intention, not insecurity. But now you must understand something deeper. These rules do not make you someone else. They return you to the man you were before the world softened you, before society trained you to shrink, before people conditioned you to bend, before life punished you for standing firm. You were not born weak. You were shaped into weakness, and now you are reshaping yourself into sovereignty. Listen closely. You do not become untouchable by force. You become untouchable by identity. People change how they treat you, not because you asked, but because you became someone who cannot be treated carelessly. A man who does not react, cannot be manipulated, does not explain, with cannot be undermined, does not fear loss, cannot be controlled, does not seek validation, cannot be disrespected, does not chase, cannot be diminished. This is the man the world respects. This is the man others speak carefully around. This is the man nobody crosses lightly. This is the man whose presence feels like a warning. This is the man who governs himself and therefore governs the room. This is the cold identity, and now it belongs to you. Speak it, write it, burn it into your mind. My identity is my armor. My silence is my power. My presence is untouchable. If this awakened something in you, if it made you see the truth behind human nature, if it revealed the version of yourself you've been suppressing, then step deeper into this world. Subscribe now for more dark psychology, more Machiavellian strategy, and more forbidden knowledge the emotionally weak are not ready for. Your transformation has already begun, but this is only the beginning.